Can't Wait for Christmas is a proud member of the Christmas Podcast Network.
Hey, buddy, what you doing?
Is it Christmas yet?
No, sorry, not yet.
I can't wait for Christmas.
Yeah, I can't wait for Christmas either. In fact, let's celebrate now.
Welcome to the Can't Wait for Christmas podcast.
It's September 25th, 2025, and that means there's only 3 months left until Christmas. Today on the show, we celebrate the 25th anniversary of the 2000 adaptation of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey. We'll also count down the top 5 naughty or nice segments from Jimmy Kimmel Live, and we'll find a Christmassy way for you to do something delicious with all those fall apples. Okay, let's start the show! Greetings, you believers, and welcome to the Can't Wait for Christmas podcast, the podcast all about Christmas history, Christmas traditions, Christmas media, and everything else Christmas. I'm your host and Burr Months Fan Club lifetime member, Tim Babb. We are still celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Can't Wait for Christmas podcast all year by celebrating other Christmas anniversaries. We'll be talking about the 2000 film How the Grinch Stole Christmas a little later on, but right now, even though it's fall, I need a little Christmas now.
We need a little Christmas now.
It's officially autumn here in the Northern Hemisphere, and that means colorful leaves, pumpkin spice lattes, and apple pies aplenty. And while apple pie is great, what if someone found a way to make it more Christmassy? Well, in answer to my convenient hypothetical question, may I present TikToker and Instagrammer Taste with Nikki, who did exactly that. I'll let her explain, but I'll jump in every so often since she's explaining this assuming you can see the visuals that go along with the video.
Did you know if you take a can of cinnamon rolls, cut it into small pieces...
Pausing real quick, she takes each cinnamon roll from the pack and cuts it into 4 equal pieces.
Add heavy cream to a baking dish.
Pausing again, she pours in some heavy whipping cream and moves the baking dish around until the entire bottom is coated.
Add your cinnamon rolls to that baking dish, top it with apple pie filling, and take 4 tablespoons of melted butter, half cup of flour, half cup of brown sugar. Mix it until it's crumbly and sandy looking like this.
When she says like this, it just looks like a bunch of coarse dirt. Sugary, buttery, delicious looking dirt.
Add that to the top of your apple pie filling. Bake this at 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. Add the icing from the cinnamon roll can.
She adds the icing by drizzling it across the top of the whole dish.
You have an easy, yummy, delicious apple pie cinnamon roll casserole.
Now, I don't know if I would have called this a casserole, but Nikki thought it up, so she gets to name it.
And as always, full recipe in the caption. Enjoy.
She does indeed have the ingredients listed in her notes, both on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll link them both in the show notes, but you're here now, I might as well tell you what the ingredients are. 1 can of cinnamon rolls, either the 8 or the 10 count, 1/4 cup of heavy cream, 1 can apple pie filling. She says you can use your own if you want to make it yourself, but as a wise woman once said, ain't nobody got time for that. 4 tablespoons melted butter, 1/2 cup of flour, and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. There you go. Again, the links are in the show notes at can'twaitforchristmaspod.com. I was going to duet the video on our TikTok and then repost that video on our YouTube, but it looks like Nikki has turned duets off. What are you hiding, Nikki? JK. Now it's time for our countdown feature, 5 Golden Things.
5 golden things.
So here's something you may not know about me. I love late night talk shows. I have ever since I was a kid. I used to watch Johnny Carson, Arsenio Hall, and Dennis Miller, and then later David Letterman, Samantha Bee, Conan O'Brien, and it continues to this day with Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, Graham Norton, and John Oliver. The great thing about shows like these, unlike movies or even other TV shows, is that a lot of them are putting out a new episode 4 to 5 nights a week. So that's a lot of content, and they often do recurring bits. And around Christmas time, they often have seasonal bits that reoccur each year. One such bit is the Naughty and Nice segment on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
This is the time of year when Santa Claus, you know him, right? Makes his list. He checks it twice, sometimes 3 times, which, as you can imagine, can be a tedious process. So Guillermo and I have been helping out. We put on our elf costumes. We have them. And We had children write a letter to Santa about what they wanted for Christmas so that we could help to determine who was naughty this year and who was nice.
I wasn't able to find information about when this segment started, but it's been going on since at least 2018. Jimmy and his sidekick Guillermo dress as elves and meet with real kids about their letters to Santa. Unbeknownst to the kids, Jimmy has talked to the parents beforehand, so he's got more information than the kids anticipate. He interviews the kids, and it's often equal parts humorous and adorable, which is exactly the sweet spot I look for in a lot of my Christmas content. So, I'm going to take you through my top 5 naughty or nice segments from Jimmy Kimmel Live, starting with...
Number 5.
Miles.
What's your name?
Miles,
Miles, how old are you?
4.5.
I see you've written a letter to Santa Claus. May I read it?
Uh-huh.
Hello, Santa. I'm just going to come right out with my wish list. I love games. This Christmas, I want Mousetrap, Stratego, and Operation. What are you, a time traveler from 1975?
Now.
All right. Susie and I are going to bake cookies for you this year. Have a Merry Christmas. Love, Miles. Who's Susie?
She's one of my grandmas.
Oh, you call your grandma Susie, huh?
Uh-huh.
You don't call her grandma?
Nah.
All right.
So in this one, we meet Miles, who's 4.5. As you heard, he asks for games and he calls his grandma Susie. When Jimmy asks Miles if he's been naughty, he says no, but then Jimmy reads off some of the naughty things Santa has observed, like he throws things in the house. Miles says he only does that sometimes. Also, he locked the babysitter out of the house. When pressed, he admits he found it funny, but the babysitter did not. Jimmy asks if there are any naughty kids in his class who don't deserve presents, and it turns out one of Miles' classmates is also named Miles, and he's the worst kid ever, because he always cuts in line at lunch. Not for nothing, Miles, but if the worst kid at your school's biggest crime is cutting in line, you've got a pretty well-behaved school. Jimmy asks if Miles is worried Santa will confuse the other Miles and him, but our Miles is not worried at all. Then Jimmy offers Miles a present right there and then. Miles activates a festive conveyor belt and out pops every kid's favorite present, a glass with dentures in it. In a rare moment for one of these, we get to watch Miles leave the set and walk up to his dad with the dentures and say, "Dad, see what I have?" Miles has great nervous kid body language throughout this, and he's adorable to watch.
Number 4.
Riley.
Let's talk about your parents. Have they been good this year?
Yes, they have.
Very good? Mm-hmm. Is there any area where they could improve, they could do better?
Yes.
What are some of those areas?
Once, my dad was taking a shower, and when he was done, he accidentally locked the door and we couldn't get in, so he tried using a hammer to open it, but he scratched his forehead.
Okay. Wow. That's a weird story. Yeah. But he had a hammer inside in the bathroom.
And then he tried like pulling the lock off, but then he scratched his forehead, and then our doorknob got bent, so we bought a new one.
Maybe we'll get him a new doorknob for Christmas.
Yeah, you could give us
It would be a good
spare.
thing to have a spare doorknob. Yeah. Okay.
Riley has some big asks in his letter to Santa: a Nintendo Switch, a widescreen TV, and an iPhone 8. Now, this clip isn't that old. It's from 2023. The iPhone 14 was out. When Jimmy asked why the iPhone 8, Riley said because they didn't have the 9. Jimmy says the iPhone 8 is 2000 and late, and he asks Riley if he likes the Black Eyed Peas, and Riley says no. Jimmy lets him know that no one does. Whoa, Black Eyed Peas are getting splashed with some side disses. Riley says he deserves the stuff on his list because he was very nice to the substitute teacher and the other kids weren't. Jimmy asked for the names of the kids that were bad, and with no hesitation, Riley runs off a list of names. He's not going to take the fault for his naughty classmates. Jimmy asks him who the worst one is, and he says it's a kid named Leonardo because he gets out of his seat and talks out of turn. No mention if he's a blue bandana-wearing Ninja Turtle. Then Jimmy asks about Riley's parents and whether they've been good this year. He says they have, and that leads to the clip I just played. After that, Jimmy says Riley has been so good they're going to give him a present right now. The present turns out to be a huge pile of doorknobs. And a lot of these bits end up with the kids getting goofy presents they don't want. And part of the comedy is the kids' reaction to seeing some horrible gift. But in this one, Riley doesn't let his smile slip and doesn't say one disappointed word. Jimmy encourages him to grab as many doorknobs as he can carry, and he cheerfully does. I really hope that right after the camera cut, they got that kid his Nintendo whatchamadoo or whatever he asked for.
Number 3.
Danielle and Nicholas.
Hey, you guys have been pretty good. Let's talk about what you want for Christmas. Let's get into it. Go ahead.
I want a puppy and all the boy stuff,
Okay.
but not girl stuff.
No girl stuff.
I want a LOL dream house for Christmas.
2 LOL dream houses, one for Nick and one for Danielle.
I don't want that.
You don't want that?
Oh, you don't want that?
This is not the only Nicholas to be on this segment, and whenever a Nicholas shows up, Jimmy always points out that Santa's name is Saint Nicholas. This time, though, Jimmy notes one difference between Saint Nick and this kid is that Santa isn't missing his 2 front teeth. Nicholas says the tooth fairy took him, and Jimmy says the tooth fairy is a weird lady with the teeth all over her backyard. Jimmy says they heard one of them was naughty and the other was nice. When he asked which one was nice, they both raised their hands. He asks what naughty things the other has done. Nicholas says his sister punched him, but she explains that it's because she thought he was sleepwalking. I didn't know punches were the cure for sleepwalking, but oddly, Jimmy does not follow up on this thread. He asks Danielle about things that Nicholas has done wrong, and Nick whispers in her ear that he doesn't clean his room. Jimmy is impressed that Nicholas tattled on himself. He asks what they want for Christmas, and that's the clip you heard. Nicholas says he'd use his drone to fly a letter to the North Pole to say thank you. Jimmy notes how kids almost never do that, but you could just mail it. You could just mail the letter. The kids worry the mailman won't survive the cold at the North Pole. Then Jimmy gives them a gift that they can open before Christmas. Now, this was during COVID shelter in place, so not sure how the present got to the kids, but they open it and it's one sock. Not one pair of socks, one adult-size athletic sock. The kids point out that there's only one sock, but they are 2 kids with a total of 4 feet. Jimmy says he didn't realize they'd be so good at math. Nicholas then announces he knows 100 times 100, and he proclaims it to be 1,000. Danielle, with a look of I've had to correct my brother a million times, says it's 10,000. Jimmy then says they're going to send them 10,000 socks. The kids yell, no! And Jimmy says, Merry Christmas. And Danielle says, Merry Christmas, but we don't want socks. I couldn't decide which clip to play from this entry. The self-tattling was pretty funny, the gift request was super funny, and the ending with the socks was really funny. The whole clip is definitely worth a watch, even after I've spoiled it all for you.
Number 2.
Luke and Lena.
Dear Santa, I want a Lego set. I want to say ho, ho, ho. Luke. That's very
Why'd
simple.
you have those silly shoes on you?
Silly? There's nothing silly about these shoes. These are some of the best shoes.
But they're curled. But why do they have curves?
Because we're elves. This is how elves dress.
But how can reindeer fly?
You have so many questions. It's unbelievable. It is literally unbelievable.
I always talk to my brother.
You do.
Always.
Do you guys want toys for Christmas or not?
This one goes off the rails from the jump and is nothing but adorable the whole time. In this one, we meet Luke and Lena, who are instantly pushing each other on the way in. They start asking questions as soon as they sit down. Why do you have pointy ears? Why do you both have those silly costumes? How will you make the presents if you don't have a present machine? When Jimmy finally got to ask about being naughty or nice, Lena immediately sold out Luke for fighting, but Luke was unfazed and continued bombarding the elves with questions. Why are you riding with those candy canes? Where did you get them? Why do you have silly shoes on? Why do they have curls? How can reindeer fly? Why does this place have a Christmas tree like the one we're going to have at home? Then Lena freaks out a bit and accuses the cameras of watching her. Jimmy points out that Santa is also watching them. You'd think that would get things back on track, but they almost immediately go back to the questions. How can Santa watch us if he's not in this house? Then Lena steps up the randomness and asks if there are ants behind her back. She then starts arguing with ants in her shoe and tickling Luke with an ant on her finger. At one point, Jimmy says, "Why do I feel like you're the adults and we're the children?"
Honorable mentions.
Lincoln.
All right, let me ask you a couple of other questions about yourself. Are you a hard worker?
A very hard worker.
Because we work very hard here at the North Pole. Are you proficient in Microsoft Excel? Yeah, okay. Photoshop? Do you know how to shovel reindeer poop? We might have a spot for you up here.
This one was also taped during COVID. Jimmy and Guillermo meet Lincoln via video chat and learn that he's 5. He also does a lot of nodding as opposed to talking, like in the clip I just played. He says he liked Christmas better than his birthday. Jimmy asks him what nice things he's done this year, and Lincoln says he plays with his brother and helps his parents cook and drink water. Jimmy tries to get to the bottom of how one helps their parents drink water, but it goes about as well as you might expect when trying to press a 5-year-old for details over a Zoom call. Jimmy asks what naughty things Lincoln has done. He admits he hits his brother once a year, the day after Lincoln's birthday. When Jimmy asks why he does this, Lincoln says because his brother called him a baby. Lincoln says he wants a Spider-Man suit, a race car set, and an elf suit. Jimmy lights up at the elf suit request and asks if he wants to work at the North Pole. Then he gets into the job interview stuff you heard in the clip. Jimmy randomly asks if Lincoln is a smoker, and surprisingly he says yes. I'm not sure what this kid thought being a smoker was, but when Jimmy asked how many he smoked a day, Lincoln said 5. Once again, he managed to get a present to Lincoln over the video call, and it was watch batteries. Lincoln, ironically, didn't seem very charged up about this gift.
Number 1.
Vince and Stella.
You sometimes say bad words.
Yes.
Which words?
We can't say it?
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are pretty bad words. I think those are the worst words there are.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you learn those words, Vince?
My mom and dad.
This was the one that made me decide to do this list. If I didn't think it wouldn't be justifiable for fair use, I would play you the whole clip. But don't worry, I'm putting links to all these in the show notes. If you choose to watch only one of them, let it be this one. We meet Vince and Stella. Jimmy asks who has been more good this year between the two of them, and they each say they were both the most good, which Jimmy points out is very diplomatic. Jimmy reads Vince's letter to Santa, and he asks for a tarantula and mice. Jimmy points out that when most people have mice, they call someone to get rid of them. Stella agrees with Jimmy that it is weird. Guillermo reads Stella's letter, and one of the only times he really gets to talk in one of these. Stella wants a bunny and a Nintendo. Then Jimmy goes over what naughty things the kids have done. Stella doesn't clean her desk in her room, watches too much YouTube, and makes a mess with slime. Jimmy asks Vince if that's true, and he adds that she throws her clothes on the floor. Amazingly, Stella does not get mad at being called out by her brother. Come on, Vinny. I've raised 2 boys, and many years ago I was a boy. There's no way you're not throwing things on the floor, too. Then Jimmy asks about the naughty things Vince has done, which, according to his Santa research, is that sometimes he says bad words, which was the clip I played at the top of this. But the part you heard wasn't the end of it. Jimmy asks Vince if he says these words at school or at home, and he says he mostly whispers them to himself. Then we get to Vince's other naughty behavior. He will sometimes pull down his pants and fart and laugh. Both kids and Guillermo crack up when Jimmy brings this up. Jimmy asks where he does this, and Vince says in his room. Jimmy then asks if anyone else is in the room when he does this, and he says no, only his sister. Vince, your sister is someone! But honestly, Jimmy is impressed with how honest the kids have been about their naughty behavior. Then he asks Vince to go over his list of naughty words one last time, and he obliges to great comedic effect. Then it's time for gifts. Stella gets a ream of printer paper, and Vince gets floor mats for a truck because he talks like a trucker. I'm telling you, you gotta check this one out. I mean, they're all good, but this one made me laugh out loud so hard that no sound was eventually coming out. Go to the show notes at can'twaitforchristmaspod.com for not only all the ones we've talked about here, but a playlist of, I'm pretty sure, all the Naughty or Nice segments they've done over the years, including the ones where they tell the kids they are hooked up to a lie detector. I didn't cover any of those, so I may do that as a separate top 5 list in the future. For the immediate future, though, we're gonna dip our fingers into Santa Babb's mailbag.
Santa Babb, he is gonna read some emails from you, or comments, or Facebook messages too. Santa Babb, he is opening up his mailbag tonight.
I was recently a guest on another Christmas podcast, which I'll talk more about later, and it got to the end of the show where it was time to plug my show, and I realized I had forgotten our new email address. So if I've forgotten it, it occurs to me that you might need to hear it again too. So it's the same as our website address, but with Gmail. can'twaitforchristmaspod@gmail.com. So that should be easy for me to remember, but I actually had to send myself an email while I was on that show to remember that it's can'twaitforchristmaspod@gmail.com.
What if I send something to Christmas@tancast.com?
Oh, hey, imaginary listener who sounds kind of like Kermit the Frog.
It's Carl!
Kind of late in the episode for you to show up.
For 10 years, you've had a different email address. What happens if people try to email the old address?
I'll still get it.
Oh.
Yeah, I still check that email regularly, but I wanted an account that was just dedicated to this show. The old email address gets lumped into one big inbox for other non-podcast and non-Christmas related emails. Like, I bought my wife one Christmas present from Gonzaga University, and they have been emailing me for years. I don't care if you're in the Final Four this year. I just wanted to buy my wonderful wife a sweatshirt in 2009. But occasionally, instead of corporate spam, I get delightful letters from folks like you. This one is from Cress, who writes, "So tonight I came into the kitchen and my wife, who is not a Christmas fanatic as I am, was cooking dinner. Of course, I was in my official 25th Miss Day light-up elf hat, and my wife says that she's gotten out the dishes to plate up and the ramekans for our rice. We are demonstrative, dramatic folks, so using funny accents and pronunciations is not abnormal in our home. To which I replied in song with, Ramakan Kan, to the tune of Little Drummer Boy. She shook her head and said, okay, I'll give you that one. It's the 25th, of course. However, she refused to give me credit for saying that she gave me a huge riceberg of rice because I've been binging the Titanic podcast. I stand by it, though. You win some, you lose some. Shrug emoji. Cress from Georgia." Thank you, Cress. And as mentioned previously on this podcast, I am all about Christmas parody songs, and impromptu Christmas parody songs are the best. I do want to ask, without any judgment whatsoever, what's there to talk about on a Titanic podcast? Like a one-and-done long and, forgive the expression, deep dive, I could get. But after you get to the point where the ship sinks, spoilers! Sorry. But after that, what do they talk about next episode?
Yep, it's still down there.
It doesn't matter. I'm glad you found it, and I'm glad you enjoy it, and I'm also glad you found this jolly little show. And if anyone else would like to write in and share what other podcasts you listen to, the email address is,
You forgot again?
Hang on, I have it written down.
It's can'twaitforchristmaspod@gmail.com. You just said it.
And now a word about one of the other Christmas podcasts on the Christmas Podcast Network. So I mentioned I was recently a guest on a podcast, and that podcast was the Tinsel Tunes podcast. And because I slap my show together with a much tighter turnaround than they do, I have the chance to give them some love for their show before the episode I was on drops. Both Dwayne and Scott were super nice to me and said some very complimentary things about this show and even about me for some reason. But Tinsel Tunes is a great podcast. It was started by Dwayne, and then he handed it off to Scott, and now they both do it together, and it's been great in every iteration. But I love these two guys together. They really drill down and learn about your favorite Christmas songs and celebrate the many versions of them. On my episode, we talked about the song We Saw Three Ships, which is a great song, but if you think about it too long, it does not make any sense. It was a lot of fun, but you don't have to wait for my episode to drop. They've been going on for 7 years. They have plenty of great episodes in the back catalog, so check them out at tinseltunes.com. Now let's get into today's feature segment. When I looked for Christmas movies that were having anniversaries this year, I was delighted to find out that the 2000 film How the Grinch Stole Christmas was one of them. This film turns 25 this year, which is crazy to me because I still think of it as a new Christmas movie. But if it was a person, it would be old enough to vote, drink, and rent a car. In fact, the new Grinch movie that came out after this is already 7 years old. I guess time flies down in Whoville.
4 o'clock, wallow in self-pity. 4:30, stare into the abyss. 5 o'clock, solve world hunger. Tell no one. 5:30, jazzercise. 6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7 o'clock, wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm booked. Of course, if I want the loathing to 9, I could still be done in time to lay in bed, stare at the ceiling, and slip slowly into madness.
But I've been wanting to talk about this version of the movie for a while, because once I got into the Christmas podcasting game and started to connect with other Christmas lovers online, I found out something very shocking. A lot of people do not like this movie, and that blows my mind.
Tim in his Christmas cave liked the Grinch film a lot, but many others who've seen the movie did not.
Whoa. What is that? What is happening right now?
But though many had thought that the film stunk, Tim decided he didn't care what they thunk.
Okay, who are you? Why are you interrupting my show? And also, thunk is not a word.
I am the narrator with a Seussian style. I'm giving people some joy for a while. And just so you and I can get grammatically in sync, thunk is a non-standard past and past participle of think.
Okay, enough. This is the most hacky narrative device to use when talking about a Dr. Seuss property. The kids would call this very cringe.
If rhyming is hackety-hackish, as you say, you should make a hook for this feature in a different way.
I don't need to have a hook. The movie is a quarter century old. It's not like I'm going to find some new angle to...
And then Tim had an idea. A crazy idea. The host got a ludicrous, crazy idea.
Okay, yes I did, but first things first, this microphone is going out the window.
That cost me $20.
I realize a lot has been said about the Jim Carrey Grinch film over the years, and we'll get to that stuff in case you haven't been watching behind-the-scenes videos about the movie for the past 2.5 decades. But in all the talk of this movie over the years, I don't think I've ever heard anyone point out what a trailblazer it was. Not because it was the first live-action film adaptation of a Dr. Seuss book, because we haven't seen many of those since, and the less said about the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat movie, the better. But this movie started a trend that continues to this day. Live-action adaptations of animation. Disney has been doing these for years with The Lion King, Aladdin, Lilo and Stitch, and this year, DreamWorks got in on the act with a live-action How to Train Your Dragon. But I put it to you that long before all of them, the 2000 How the Grinch Stole Christmas was a live-action version of the animated TV special. Just like Disney's animated Beauty and the Beast was an adaptation of the old fairy tale, and then the live-action version wasn't just another adaptation of the fairy tale, but an adaptation of the adaptation. Similarly, there's so much in the Grinch movie that's taken directly from the special. For instance, the rectangular heart x-ray thing to show his heart is 3 sizes too small is not in the book, but is in both the special and the movie. The Grinch getting the idea to play Santa when he sees snow on Max's face that looks like a beard, not in the book, but in the special and the movie. So many sight gags are taken straight from the special. The Grinch cutting a Santa coat out of a giant piece of red cloth, when he holds open a bag to catch a toy train as it's chugging along the tracks, even the fact that the Grinch is green. He's got no color in the original book. The only colors in the original book are black, white, and red. But most of all, the 2 songs, Welcome Christmas and You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, those were created for the special. But they are now so associated with the Grinch that not only are they in this, they are also in the 2018 computer-animated Grinch film. Some songs just stick to literary characters when they make the jump to our screens. You can't make a Grinch movie without You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, just like you can't make a James Bond film without Monty Norman's classic theme. And you can't make a Superman movie without the John Williams theme.
Actually, Zack Snyder didn't use the Superman theme in Man of Steel or Batman v Superman.
Yeah, those aren't Superman movies.
But Superman was in...
I said what I said!
Okay.
But live-action adaptations exist in a weird state where people constantly complain about them, but they make a ton of money. And The Grinch seems to exist in a similar state. So I guess it makes sense that since so many of these live-action adaptations divide people, that The Grinch, the very first live-action adaptation, would also divide people.
Actually, the live-action 101 Dalmatians starring Glenn Close came out in 1996, 4 years before The Grinch.
Yeah, I was hoping no one noticed that.
Did you come up with this theory and type all this out before actually looking up the oldest live-action adaptation, and then decide you'd put too much work into it to just scrap it all?
Yep. That's exactly what happened. Moving on, I will say it makes sense that if you're going to make The Grinch into a movie, you'd pull from the beloved animated special as well as the book, especially since the book is only 50 pages long. And that might seem like plenty, but it's not exactly jam-packed with text. The first page only has 9 words on the whole page. There are some pages with no words at all, just a drawing of the Grinch looking out at the audience thinking, they're really going to make a movie out of this?
The impudence! The audacity! The unmitigated gall! You've called down the thunder. Now, get ready for the boom!
And that could be one of the reasons that Dr. Seuss himself, Theodore Geisel, never licensed any of his books to be movies while he was alive. He was approached many times about his books and always said no, particularly The Grinch, because he thought the TV special was so good that any further adaptations would pale by comparison. Then, in 1991, he passed away, and his estate was in the hands of his widow, Audrey Geisel. Audrey was more open to licensing the Dr. Seuss catalog, but she also fiercely defended its integrity. For instance, she had rules studios would have to agree to in order to get the film rights to The Grinch. They had to agree to pay $5 million up front, plus 4% of the box office gross, 50% of any merchandising sales, and 70% of any book tie-ins. Regarding the role of the big green guy himself, she insisted any actor submitted for The Grinch must be of comparable stature to Jack Nicholson, Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, and Dustin Hoffman. Additionally, the estate wouldn't consider any director or writer who hadn't earned at least $1 million on a previous picture. She heard pitches from directors like Tom Shadyac, who worked with Jim Carrey on Liar Liar. He had a pitch with an interested Jack Nicholson to star. I like Jim Carrey, but I would have loved to see a Jack Nicholson Grinch.
Why, for 53 years I put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?
Tim accused the narrator of being a hack, but then did the impression every hack comic does. Jack.
I see you found your mic again. Let's get that out of here.
Oh, man!
Other directors considered included Batman and Beetlejuice director Tim Burton, the guys behind There's Something About Mary, the Farley brothers, and Christmas veteran John Hughes, who wrote Home Alone and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. None of them could seal the deal, and eventually producer Brian Grazer made his pitch with director Gary Ross, who didn't land this gig, but would go on to direct the first Hunger Games movie. His pitch was interesting, though, because it would combine The Grinch with Green Eggs and Ham. We almost got a Seussian cinematic universe in the year 2000, but Audrey Geisel shut it down.
We noticed your Grinchy skills could be quite contributive, so we want you to come join the Seussian initiative.
Oh, suddenly rhyming's not hacky.
So when Ross's pitch wasn't accepted, producer Brian Grazer begged for another shot. And when he got Audrey to agree to a second meeting, he turned to his producing partner, Ron Howard. Ron studied the book and highlighted on the character of Cindy Lou Who. In the original book, she's only 2 years old and only has one brief interaction with the Grinch. But Ron had the idea to age her up and have her play a more important role in the story.
I know you hate Christmas, but what if it's all just a misunderstanding?
Don't care.
I mean, I myself am having some Yuletide doubts. But maybe if you can reunite with the Who's and be a part of Christmas...
Maybe if you can reunite with the Who's and be a part of Christmas...
Grow up!
Then maybe it'll be all right for me, too.
And that sold Audrey, and they got the green light with Ron Howard signed on to produce with Brian Grazer and also direct the movie. Jeffrey Price and Peter S. Seaman, the writers of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, were hired to write the screenplay with the added challenge of the script needing approval from Audrey Geisel. She said she made them go through 8 drafts because there was some adult humor in the first few attempts that she didn't care for. Then it was time to cast the role of the Grinch. And when you're looking for an actor with the stature of Jack Nicholson, Robin Williams, or Dustin Hoffman, naturally you go with John Stamos. Yes, last year on the Tis the Grinch Holiday Podcast, a podcast hosted by the Grinch himself, Stamos claimed he was nearly cast as the Grinch.
Hey, you know, I have something. Here's an interesting fact you don't know about me.
Shoot.
I was originally going to play you in the movie that Jim Carrey got. Did you know that? I went through the makeup test, and I was allergic to all the prosthetics.
So when you can't get Uncle Jesse, naturally you turn to Jim Carrey, who was very eager to play the part. He said, "It wasn't Christmas growing up without the reading of the book and the watching of the cartoon. When the movie project came up, I realized it was a dream come true, even though I'd never fantasized about it before."
This is one of the ones I wouldn't have dreamed that I'd be able to do. But when it came along, it just made total sense, And I just went, well, I've been doing the Grinch since I was a little kid. I do all that stuff with my face and stuff. It kind of makes sense, and I don't know. I was just honored completely when I found out I was going to do it. I was like, okay, now I better not screw it up because this is like for some odd reason this furry, weird little character has become incredibly important to people.
Even most people who don't like this movie will agree that Jim Carrey gives an outstanding performance as the Grinch. During the casting process, Carrey was shooting the Andy Kaufman biopic Man on the Moon, where he famously stayed in character all the time. So when Audrey Geisel came to see him on the set, she got to see Andy Kaufman doing an impression of Jim Carrey playing the Grinch. Despite this weird Grinchception, she was stunned and said, without makeup, he became the Grinch before my eyes. And we'll talk more about Carrey and the makeup in a bit, but I'd also like to highlight some of the other actors who really did some great work in this movie. The first is Taylor Momsen as Cindy Lou Who. She was only 6 years old when they were shooting this, and a lot of this movie's emotional center rests on her shoulders. People may disagree, but I think she's great in this. She's in scenes going toe-to-toe with Jim Carrey at the height of his madness, and she's still holding up the emotional spine of this story.
Kids today, so desensitized by movies and television. What do you want?
Mr. Grinch, I came to invite you to be holiday cheermeister.
Sadly, the aftermath of The Grinch was rough on Momsen. She said this on the Pod Crush podcast in 2023.
Making friends was always challenging for me because I was, first of all, the Grinch. If you want to go back to the Grinch changed my life in a multitude of ways. One of them being I was made fun of relentlessly. So every time I would start a new school or go somewhere else, I don't even think the kids knew my name. I was just Grinch Girl. So it's Grinch Girl, Grinch Girl, Grinch Girl.
Not even Cindy Lou Who.
Oh, no, not even character name, just Grinch Girl. And so that was...
Wow.
That was just I got used to it, but it was alienating.
I also want to highlight Christine Baranski, who had the unenviable task of playing a character named Martha May Whovier, who is in love with the Grinch. Meryl Streep is a great actress, but did she ever have to spend a whole movie making you believe that she had the hots for a hammy ball of green fur? This may not be the role Baranski is the most famous for, but it's gotta be the one where she worked the hardest. There's one scene in particular that cracks me up. Cindy Lou Who is interviewing various Who's about the Grinch, and they're all telling their versions of a story about the young Grinch snapping and picking up a Christmas tree and throwing it across the room. They cut between various people reacting to this, and it ends on Martha May Whovier.
I hate Christmas!
The anger. The fury.
The muscles.
Her line read on the muscles cracks me up every single time. And there are a lot of great cast members in this. Jeffrey Tambor as the mayor, Clint Howard as his assistant, Molly Shannon as Betty Lou Who, Cindy Lou's mom, Bill Irwin as Lulu Who, Cindy Lou's dad, and Anthony Hopkins as the narrator.
Yes, every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not.
Now, with a director and a script and a cast in place, it was time to create the world of the Grinch. Filming took place on 11 sound stages across Universal Studios in LA, including a 30,000 square foot set on one of the stages that was one of the largest sets ever built at Universal Studios. In fact, I remember back in the day when you would go on the studio tram tour, you used to get to see a part of it. To build Whoville, they used 2 million linear feet of styrofoam, 8,000 ornaments, and 52,000 Christmas lights. And the thing about this movie, you couldn't just grab any old costumes or props. Everything had to be created to match the Seussian look they were going for. I like this quote I found in the special features of my Grinch DVD that I bought from Blockbuster back in 2001. It says, early in pre-production, Ron Howard discussed the movie with his friend George Lucas, who advised him to try 1950s-style appliances and props and tweak them to the desired look, as opposed to creating them from scratch. This tweaking technique was used by Lucas in the 1977 space adventure classic, Star Wars. Thank you for clearing that up, DVD Extra. I couldn't remember what Star Wars was, but thankfully you clarified that it was some sort of space adventure. Now, we've got the what, Whoville, we've got the where, Universal Studios, and we've got the how, Styrofoam, 50s appliances, and loads of Christmas decor. All we need now is the who's. Did you see what I did there?
I saw what you did there. Did you love it? No.
All right. Every Who down in Whoville had to have a certain look for the film, but it was not easy deciding what that look might be. If you look at the drawings from the book, some of the Who's look just as furry as the Grinch. So how do you translate that look into live action? Well, you turn to the first guy to ever win the Academy Award for makeup, Rick Baker. Baker had already won Oscars for his work on American Werewolf in London, Harry and the Hendersons, and Men in Black. Plus, he created the werewolf for Michael Jackson's Thriller video, so you know this is the guy to go to for your Harry lead character. But this may have been his most challenging project yet. Baker said, I started out making some of the Who test makeups a little too scary. Ron wanted me to make them more human so that people can relate to them and know they have a heart. It took some time to get a balance between the Seuss-like and the human-like for the Who's. Baker and his company, Sinovation Studios, created 125 character makeups for the movie. During the Whoville town square scenes, Baker would have a staff of as many as 60 makeup artists applying 110 makeups daily. And that isn't even mentioning the big guy, the Grinch. Baker had to come up with a makeup that could turn Jim Carrey into the Grinch, but still let him use his expressive face that Carrey was famous for. Also, he was covered head to toe in yak hair that was dyed green and sewn into a spandex suit. In 2014, Jim Carrey talked about the makeup process from his perspective on The Graham Norton Show.
When I did the Grinch, I was literally, the makeup was like being buried alive every day.
How long did it take?
The first day was 8.5 hours. And I went back to my trailer and put my leg through the wall. And I told Ron Howard I couldn't do the movie. And then Brian Grazer came in, and being the fix-it man, and came up with a brilliant idea, which was to hire a gentleman who is trained to teach CIA operatives how to endure torture. And so that's how I got through the Grinch. I would like, it was quite hilarious. He said, eat everything you see, and if you're freaking out and you start to spiral downward, turn the television on, change a pattern, have someone you know come up and smack you in the head, punch yourself in the leg, so it was, or smoke as much as you possibly can. So I was this Grinch sitting give me a light. And this giant cigarette holder, so the yak hair wouldn't go on fire. And,
the green yak hair.
Yeah, the green yak hair that turned inward and went. It was horrifying. Wow. It was horrifying. It was just like, it's for the kids. It's for the kids. It's for the kids.
How many months was that?
I did the makeup 100 times.
Good noise.
And you know what?
Very good noise.
You know what got me through it? The Bee Gees.
To show support for his star, director Ron Howard actually had himself made up as the Grinch and directed all day in the Grinch costume and makeup. Then we come to the music. Jim Carrey definitely does his own thing in his version of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel.
You're as cuddly as a cactus and as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch.
I wasn't able to find out if Thurl Ravenscroft, who sang the original, heard Carrey's version and what he thought of it. That's a bummer. James Horner provided the score for the film, and he wrote it in about 6 weeks. He felt the biggest challenge was striking the balance between comedic tones and emotional sounds. He said, "It's like a big tightrope walker with one foot in the air at all times. My feeling is that the funniness is going to come through whatever, so I tend to err on the side of making things emotive." Then, of course, there's the big closing credits song, Where Are You, Christmas?, performed by Faith Hill.
Where are you, Christmas? Do you remember the one you used to know?
The song started off as Christmas, Why Can't I Find You, the song Cindy Lou Who sings early in the movie. It was written by James Horner and Will Jennings. Then they collaborated with the Queen of Christmas herself, Mariah Carey, to create the longer version that became Where Are You, Christmas for the film's credits. It was generally accepted that she would also sing the song, but the word is that her ex-husband and the head of Sony Records at the time, Tommy Mottola, wouldn't let her sing on it. And that's why Faith Hill is the one who ended up recording the song. Although supposedly somewhere out there is the version with Mariah Carey singing the song, and she keeps saying she'll release it one day. While I enjoy Hill's version, I do feel robbed of 25 years of being able to make Jim Carrey, Mariah Carey jokes.
Cheer up, dude. It's Christmas.
But all of this really doesn't get to the reason why people are so divided on this movie. Like, I love this movie. And it's not like I was a kid when it came out and I just am looking at it with nostalgia goggles. I was already in my 20s.
Yikes! You are old.
Thanks for that. I don't know, maybe it's because I was a big Jim Carrey fan all the way back in the Living Color, Once Bitten Ace Ventura days, and even the first time he was green, The Mask. The jokes in this movie really land for me, and I like the backstory they give of why the Grinch hates Christmas. I like the Cindy Lou Who story, where she's disillusioned by the shallow commercialism of Christmas and how that weaves in with the Grinch's redemption story.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what it's always been about. Gifts. Gifts. Gifts, 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 gifts. You want to know what happens to your gifts? They all come to me. In your garbage. You see what I'm saying? In your garbage.
I could hang myself with all the bad Christmas neckties I found at the dump.
And the avarice.
The avarice never ends.
I want golf clubs. I want diamonds. I want a pony so I can ride it twice, get bored, and sell it to make glue. Look, I don't want to make waves, but this whole
Christmas season is stupid, stupid, stupid.
I can't deny that the film has its flaws, though. At one point, there's a flashback to Baby Grinch, and that is one messed up looking baby. I think they might have been going for so ugly it's cute, but they just stopped at so ugly. Also, during the Grinch's raid on Whoville, there were a lot of scenes that got stuck in my craw. We know that he's eventually going to give all this stuff back at the end. Spoiler alert, I guess, for a 25-year-old movie and a 67-year-old book.
7.
Absolutely not. Look at me. Absolutely not.
Sorry?
Anyway, the Grinch is going through the houses, and he's causing plenty of damage that can't be fixed just by coming back with the stuff. He takes stockings down by having moths eat them. How does he fix that? Have the moths burp them back up? He takes the Who pudding out of the fridge and tosses it off camera, and you hear the sound of the dish breaking. That dish is gone, and that pudding is filled with shards of Who-ramics. At one point, he saws through the floor to take someone's tree. First of all, now there's a big gaping hole in that family's living room. Second of all, why did you make a hole to take the tree lower when your sled is up on the roof? You just made more work for yourself. These things stick with me, but I still think the movie is loads of holly jolly fun. Am I wrong, or are the haters wrong?
Then Tim thought of something that gave him some deference. Maybe whether people liked it or not was down to personal preference. It's okay that some like it and some people do not, because regardless, Tim likes this movie a lot. So Tim will go on watching this movie each year, and he'll pay no mind to those for whom it brings them no cheer. And what happens next? Well, in Christmas Cave, they say, Tim came back to me and threw my microphone away.
Real jerk move, Babb.
So he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.
Yeah.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check the show notes for the apple pie cinnamon roll casserole recipe and the links to the Naughty or Nice clips we talked about. Don't forget to keep an eye on the Tinsel Tunes podcast because I'll be popping over there relatively soon. And here on this podcast, we've got more anniversary celebrations coming up next episode, where I'll be joined by a special guest who is celebrating an anniversary of their own this year. I'll leave you with that tease for now, but I'll be back to satiate your curiosity on the 25th of October. Until then, Yule Believers, keep laughing all the way.
And that was Christmas 1983.
Actually, Dad, it's 2025.
Oh.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Can't Wait for Christmas podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to us at Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and email us about it at christmas@tancast.com, we'll send you a free Can't Wait for Christmas sticker. If you'd like to see the show notes or leave a comment on this or any other episodes, you can go to our official website, can'twaitforchristmaspod.com. While you're there, you'll find a link to our official Zazzle store, where you can grab customizable t-shirts, ornaments, stickers, and all sorts of other Christmas-themed items all year long. We'd love to connect with you on social media. On Blue Sky, we are at Christmas Pod, and on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, we are at Can't Wait for Christmas Pod. We Wish You a Merry Christmas was performed by the United States Marine Corps Band, and this amazing version of Jingle Bells on the accordion was performed by the wonderful and talented Christian Nowicki. All other music and sounds used in this episode are the properties of their individual copyright holders, and they are used for purposes of commentary and review. No infringement is intended. Okay, boys, did I forget anything?
God bless us, everyone.
Merry Christmas!
I'm your host, stand-up comics and Burr Month's fan club night. It's always good when you can't get through the first bit. You know it's gonna be a great recording session when you can't get through the first bit. Woo! But I've been wanting an excuse to talk about this version of the movie for a while, because once I got into the Christmas podcasting game and started to connect with, once I got into the run-on sentence writing game, I realized I don't have enough air in my lungs to read them. And this year, DreamWorks got into the action with a live-action How to Train Your Dragon. Meow, meow, meow. Some songs just stick to literary characters when they make the jump to our screens. Some songs just stick to literary characters when they make the jumps to our screens. Ah! I've said this line wrong too many times! Some songs just stick to literary characters when they make the jumps to our screen. No! Jump! Only one jump! Stop pluralizing jumps! Some songs just stick to literary characters when they make the jump. Why is this line the one? Why? Then, in 1991, he passed... Then, I sounded way too excited because I didn't know how that sentence was going to end. Then, in 1991, he passed away. During the casting process, Carrey was shooting the Andy Kaufman biopic. See, now I said biopic instead of biopic. Is it biopic or biopic? I'm going to have to biopic one. Nailed that joke! During the casting process, Carrey was shooting the Andy Kaufman biopic, Man on the Moon. No, biopic. I'm going to say biopic. Why am I arguing with myself about this? There's no one else here.
What about me?
You're just me with a sillier voice. This tweaking technique was used by Lucas in his 1977 space adventure. Oh, sorry. This tweaking... Who am I apologizing to? I'll leave you with that tease for now, but I'll be back to satiate your curiosity. I'll leave you with that tease for now, but I'll be back to satiate your curiosity. It's the last sentence. Let me say the last sentence so I can press stop and start editing.